Hello and welcome to day one of our trip. Just a few things as we get started. I did send a link to be able to sign up for what's called like a visa. It's not really a visa to get into Israel, but you do need to sign up for that. I think it's about $7 US, 25 shekels. Shekels right now are like 3.15 shekels per dollar. So you will need to sign up for that. And once you get that approved, you want to keep that email. You will need that to go ahead and to board your plane to be able to get into Tel Aviv to first place. So what will happen once you arrive in Tel Aviv? I'll explain more as you get there, as the time gets closer of what to do, how to meet. We'll get all that taken care of. But we'll get right into our study here. What we're going to do is from Tel Aviv, if you see here in the airport, Ben Gurion, what we're going to do is we're going to basically take up and go through Tel Aviv, and we are going to head all the way up, basically along the Mediterranean coast, and then we're going to go to a place. It's much more of a country area called Caesarea, and it's Caesarea National Park. Depending on what time everybody arrives. The hope is to be able to get there for sunset and to be able to see the sunset at the beach in Caesarea. So that is the plan, and that is the hope of where we're going to go. Let me switch here to um, the app that we'll be using. I thought I had it open, but we'll get this open here. Um, so we're going to, once we get there, basically you will have opportunity, if we're there in decent time, is we're going to visit the aqueduct. This is an ancient aqueduct. It's in two parts. The first part, this part here, was built by Herod the Great. The other part was built by Hadrian about 100, 130 years later. And just to give you an idea, I know there's a picture in your booklet of the aqueduct. And so you want to be able to, um, just one second, I'm going to open this up. So you want to be able to see that. And what we're going to do is we're going to have, this is kind of the image. Here is where Caesarea is. And this aqueduct was built. It came down from basically this region here, had a few things that added to it. And just to give you a general overview, if we go to if we go to our Google Maps here, you see Caesarea, and you see all this. It's a very hilly country. This is flat, this is hilly, so basically the aqueduct would come down from kind of this range here to Caesarea. Only a short bit, a small bit of it remains, but that's what we're going to get to see. Hopefully that opening night there in Caesarea. From there, what we're going to do that night is we're going to take opportunity to see some of Caesarea. We're going to have dinner there at Caesarea. They've turned the national park into basically a real neat place. Have some restaurants are part of that, and kind of redid some old ancient stairs. And this is old ancient stuff built by Herod the Great that we're going to have opportunity to see. Just in case you're wondering, that first night we're staying at two apartment buildings. It's kind of a resort area. Two apartments in this complex is where we'll be staying at. And these are just kind of pictures from the apartment complex that we will be at. So the next morning, we're going to head just a short way, just a mile or two down the road to Caesarea National Park. It says this is Caesarea Maritime. This was built by Herod the Great, and he wanted to have a port city. And the closest port city was basically Joppa, but we're going to go there one of the days, and you're going to find it wasn't really a good port. And he wanted to make this massive port. This was not a natural port. It was not a natural harbor. But Herod decided he wanted to show off his craftsmanship. Herod was a master builder. So Herod built this city of Caesarea. This here is how it looks today. This here is kind of an image of how it would have looked. One thing to note is that construction that took place at one time didn't stay the same. It would often be changed 30, 40, 50 years. Somebody else would come along and demolish part of it and add part of it. So when you're doing archaeology, they show things from certain time periods. For instance, this shows the Hippodrome in here, though there's no picture of it. Basically, all we're going to see is this area right here is the only spot that's excavated. All this right here is still under the ground, under the parking lot. If you look here at this map here, this is the parking lot where much of the residential area would be. These here are kind of storehouses. Because it was a port city, they had large storehouses that they would have. So when we first get into the city, we're going to come in and we're going to go by the Hippodrome. And now the understanding of a Hippodrome, if you've seen like Ben-Hur, the movie, there would be horse racing around it. It would also be used for physical racing contests. So we'll walk through some of the bleachers here. And you might notice this feature right here. It looks kind of odd to have a feature in the middle of the Hippodrome. Remember, when they do excavations, they do it over a period of time. So this wasn't actually at that time. It wasn't, this middle part wasn't there. It was built later on, but they're just showing how some buildings came later on, was built over where the Hippodrome would have been. We'll take opportunity to walk through the storehouses. Over here is a bathhouse. We'll briefly explain it. We won't go into detail. We'll spend some time just looking around Caesarea, talking about the different events that happened in Caesarea. Very important to me, the biblical events that took place. We think of the idea of Cornelius receiving the Holy Spirit there, the first Gentile to understand the truth. We know that Philip spent time in Caesarea. We know, we'll talk about it a little bit later, that Paul was in jail in Caesarea. And so we'll talk about some of the biblical events that happened there. A little bit later, we'll mention something about Agrippa that happened there. What we're going to do is we're going to walk over to this region. It's hard to see on this map, but that's where a visitor center is. And the visitor center is actually right here where this Temple of Augustus used to be. This is a man-made, again, structure. We'll get to walk out to about this area here. If you see on the map, we'll get to walk out and see some of it that was built by Herod the Great. And we're going to go see some of the remains or the remnants here of the temple that would have been built by Herod. Just to give you a better idea, this would have been a massive structure that was built by him. They've actually redone some of these stairs with the archway underneath. There's nothing really on top of platform, but this is actually where their visitor center is inside these arches that were built by Herod the Great. In fact, we're going to go over to one of these arches over here, and it still exists. This is actually still the way it was built by Herod the Great back before Christ in beginning or in 30 AD. And that's just, it's a massive structure. If you see, this is just part of the retaining wall. And we'll get to see some of this. And this was what they would have seen. So when they would first have come into port and they come in here, what they're going to see is they're going to see this temple. And again, this was a pagan city, a Roman city, and yet this is something that was very, very important to Israel, important to Herod time. So we're going to have opportunity to see this temple here that was built, or at least remnants. We'll watch a video there, and it gives some details about how Caesarea changed over the years. From there, what we're going to do is we are going to head back out. So we're going to go there. We're going to have an opportunity to look at the water just a little bit here, take some pictures, and we're going to come back through the Hippodrome and come to this area right here. Now, this map doesn't show it, but this one does. You're going to find when we go over to the Holy Land that maps are not always accurate because they're people's artist rendition, but also what period do you choose to do? Do you do it right when Herod built it? Do you do it 200 years after Herod was there and things were changed and different? And so many maps are done at different times in different ways. But what we're going to do is you're going to see this area here, and this was part of where Herod's palace would have been. Now, we talk about Herod's palace, but what's more significant would be this is where Pilate would have spent a lot of his time, and many of the kings and rulers. I do want to encourage you to look at your booklet or your chart, and you will see the different Herods and understand It's important to understand because we're going to talk about a lot about Herod, but then it gets confused because you have Herod Philip and Herod Antipas and Herod Agrippa the first and Herod Agrippa the second. And then after Herod died, it was divided up into three regions among his three sons. And there's a section there about Herod, and it's great if you read through that, familiarize yourself with that. It'll really help you. And so this would have been basically, if we think of even the time down, the governors of Rome. So we would have Felix, Bernice, Agrippa, Festus would be here, but specifically the story of Paul when he is spending 2 years here in Caesarea. Now, interesting to note that this palace would have probably overlooked this hippodrome. Now, we don't know for sure, but I would like to think that actually here, if we look here in the palace, part of the palace would have been right here. And Paul would have actually been most likely somewhere here in this palace. Now, we don't know if he was in an upper room or not, but he uses many illustrations of physical activities, about sports, about running from his prison epistles. Remember, he wasn't necessarily a prisoner. He hadn't done anything wrong. They had captured him and brought him to Caesarea for his safety. And so very well, he could have been in one of these rooms looking down and watched these many races and come up with the many illustrations that he often used. Now we know he probably went and saw games other places, but as he's writing this, either from Caesarea or Rome, I know this had to be probably burned in his mind, some of these images. Now, what we're going to see, if we see here the overview of this palace, what we see today, if we look here, you're going to see right here, this is going to be like a pool. This is the structure of the pool. So then if we go back to this image right here, you see that there would have been a pool inside of here. So we're going a different direction than the picture, the big picture, but the pool would have then stuck out right here. Again, we're going the opposite direction. So this area here would have been part of his palace. What we're going to see is all these people are gathered around in this picture, actually the Pilate stone. This is a stone that actually has reference to Pontius Pilate, proving the scripture is accurate. Many people had doubted Pontius Pilate had existed, but this helped prove the existence of that Pontius Pilate was a real person, real governor, and not just made up in scripture. So we see some of that, and then we come down to what we're going to do then. It's not on your main picture here, but it is on this map. And here we see the idea of there's going to be a Roman theater. And again, Pilate's area would have been right here. And we have this theater. And we get the opportunity to visit this theater. Much of it is still alive still working in existence. They still have concerts here. Now, in those days, there wouldn't have seen the water as much. There would have been a very large backdrop for sound effects. But we're going to have opportunity in this theater. And the neat thing is the story of Herod Agrippa found in the book of Acts and also recorded in Josephus. He had some more information. And we're going to get to read through this here. And anytime we see authentic places where we know this is where this event happened in the Bible and recorded, I will point out because I love those places. Because there's a lot of places we have a general idea where things took place, but we don't know the exact place. But this one, we have a clear, exact place where it took place. And so we get the opportunity to see that, and we'll talk about that, and you have opportunity to read about your theater. So that's basically what we're going to see when we go to Caesarea, and we'll spend a few hours there because they have really done a work, and there's a lot there in Caesarea. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take, and from Caesarea is we're going to come up to basically Mount Carmel region range up here. And if you want to look to understand this, all these right here, it says Mount Carmel National Park. All of these are actually, this is the Mount Carmel range. So we talk about Mount Carmel. We don't know the exact spot where Elijah defeated the prophets of Baal. But we're going to go to this spot right here. in this region as we're getting an opportunity. We're going to go to this monastery right here, which overlooks, as we get a picture, this wonderful valley, the Jezreel Valley. We're going to spend a lot of time in and around the Jezreel Valley for our first day while we're there. Well, up in Mount Carmel, one of the things we're going to do and see is we're going to take time to look down in the valley. Now, hopefully the monastery will be open. It wasn't the last time we were there, but they have different hours. We should be able to get it to the right hours when we're there, hopefully. And it overlooks the Jezreel Valley. We'll talk about the story of Elijah and his defeating and read through that, the prophets of Baal being in the area, and it helps to come alive. You'll get the idea that when Elijah ran down the hill and went to Samaria afterwards, beating Ahab there, we get this picture of the valley. And if it starts to rain really hard, there's going to be a lot of muck here in this valley. And then we'll have a general idea. I'll give you a map or a general idea of where Samaria would have been, which would have been down somewhere here in this region. So he would have gone quite a ways from all the way somewhere in the Carmel Range all the way down to here as Elijah ran. But we'll talk about that while we're there. So that's the main thing we're going to see there. We're going to go along basically the Jezreel Valley. We're actually going to cut through in the back way, really down this road here to Megiddo. Now, Megiddo doesn't necessarily have great biblical significance. If you read through your booklet, it talks about some of the different things. We know that a few kings were battling there or even killed around there in the valley of Jezreel. One of the main references to Megiddo is, of course, Tel Megiddo or Armageddon, the valley of Megiddo, Armageddon, which is pictured to be here. We'll talk about that. There's some debate about that, but we'll make reference to that, and as well as we'll watch a short video when we get to Megiddo. Now, it's only a 20-minute drive or so these really aren't that far of a distance at all. But when we get to Megiddo, this is just an overview, and it's called a tell. This is important to understand because we're going to visit several tells, but to understand, originally a city was built. What did a city need? A city needed, one, water supply. And this has a spring and a water supply in this area. Number two, it needed food, places for food. Number three, protection. And this was originally built on a hill, but the hill is much higher than the original hill. And why is that? Because it's been recorded here, there's over 25, and some even say up to 30 different civilizations that's been built. So if we think about it this way, the Assyrians, which would have been one of the latest cities, would be towards the top. And the original Canaanite cities, the Philistine cities, would be built on the bottom. And what happens is one city comes through, you destroy that city, one nation does, you destroy that city and you build on top of it using some of the parts. The next civilization comes in, destroys it, builds on top of it, and so on. And over time, you build up into a tell. So originally it would start as some type of a hill because for defensive purposes, but eventually you would have this. And so you're going to see this in Tel Megiddo. What happens is they'll show you some spots even around here. We'll have an opportunity. Over here, we're going to look down to see how there's different layers. And as they dig down, they reveal different layers. It's always a question. What layer do you show? Do you show 900 BC? Do you show 1800 BC? Where do you show what layers? And they show different layers of this. So biblical significance, Megiddo was a fortress city. It was a desired city. Talks about in the Judges as well as in the Kings. Solomon fortified it. When we're there, we're going to see a few things. We're going to see like Solomon's gates. These have been fortified gates to get an idea of what the city walls would have looked like in attacking armies, what they would have seen as they would have to travel uphill to get into the city. So we're going to see some of that. The other thing we're going to see when we're there is a sample of a grain bin. So you see stairs that come down here. This would have been plastered. They would have stored much of their grain in here. Why? Because when a city was under siege, on the inside, your goal is to outlast the people that are on the outside. The people on the outside of the city, the invading army, their goal is to outlast the people on the inside. The Bible talks in the Old Testament, Kings especially, in Joshua Judges as well, about besieging a city. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to store your food. So food will be taken here, collected, and stored, and be there for times of need. So we're going to see that and sample a real neat sample of that to understand that. We're also going to see what's called Solomon's stables. We're going to see some troughs as well. The Bible talks about how Solomon kept his army of horses in spots like Megiddo. Now, to understand why Megiddo was so important, we look here and to say, okay, if somebody's going to be traveling from the north and wants to cut through here or cut through this region, this is all a mountainous region, except just like this road is today, there's a nice path that cuts through here. So if you want to basically be able to get through this region and to do it safely, there's a few spots here. What you're going to do is you're going to have this fortress because you're going to control trade. You can charge tariffs to people wanting to travel through your country. You can, if you're a bigger country, you can keep people in and out. You can defend things. That's why a city like this, a fortress city, if you saw an enemy army attacking, they would have to come through here. So these were important cities. That's what Megiddo was, an important city for that reason. We're also going to have opportunity to go down possibly into the water system. Last year it was closed from cave-ins, and they built this long structure, this water system that would basically help reroute the river or spring to keep it safe so they would have a continual water supply and the enemy wouldn't have the water supply. So hopefully we'll have a chance to see that while we're there. So that's what we'll see at Megiddo. From Megiddo, we're going to take that and go down. We'll basically cut through some of the Jezreel Valley a little bit, and we're going to come over here to En-Hared Springs. And that's where the picture is here of En-Hared Springs. And one of the neat things I love about this is that it's a place where Gideon and his 300 men really was reduced down to 300 men, and where they would have knelt down and taken the water. And it's really an interesting place. You see the water, actually the spring begins right out of the rock, and we'll get a chance to walk up there. And then on the top of the hill, what we're going to do is we're going to overlook the valley, and we're going to talk through the story of Gideon and what took place. We're going to point out where the mountains were behind us, where the spring is. We're going to point out the battlefield, the Midianite camp, the hill of Morah that's mentioned, all these things that are mentioned, and we will talk through that while we're there. That's one of the things we'll get to see. And then after that, we're going to take opportunity to go up into the mountains of Gilboa. Again, not a whole lot of biblical significance to Gilboa, but we're going to get some views and point things out of the Jezreel Valley, as well as Bet Shan, the city. Bet Shan and Gilboa kind of go hand in hand. Why? If you think about the story, these are the mountains of Gilboa, and think about the story of Bet Shan and Saul and his sons were killed where? Somewhere here on the mountains of Gilboa. Their bodies were then taken and hung up here in Bet Shan, and people delivered the bodies, and we're going to see that later on when we visit Bet Shan. We'll explain and talk about that. So we'll have the opportunity to go up into the mountains of Gilboa, and again, some of the things we'll see is just incredible scenery of the Jezreel Valley. Now, I will say, if you look here, it's kind of hazy. It's almost always hazy, at least the times I've been there in Israel. Hardly ever you get a crisp, clear day, but you still get to see quite a bit. So we'll go to a lookout point, and we'll get to see some of this, the Jezreel Valley, as well as the Jordan Valley. It's significant here because that's where the two come together. So you see here where the mountains of Gilboa are, and we'll back out just a little bit. The Jezreel Valley connects here to the Jordan Valley, and it kind of cuts in right through this area here. That's how they connect. If you remember when the Midianites came up, it said they travel up through this region to have the crops. A lot of Judges stories in Judges take place here in the Jezreel Valley. From there, what we're going to do is we're going to head to Mount Tabor, right here. We often say maybe Tabor, but the biblical pronunciation should be Tabor. And so we're going to go up, and we're going to go up to Mount Tabor. Now, some people think that this was also the Mount of Transfiguration. That's why there's a church built on top of this area, this mountain that there is. That's not the picture I wanted. This one right here. So the unique thing about Mount Tabor is it kind of just sticks up. It's this big hump in the middle of kind of a valley that sticks out. We're going to go there again. That's why people say maybe it was the Mount of Transfiguration. Well, we do know it's mentioned in the Old Testament a handful of times, specifically the story of Deborah and Barak. And we're going to read through the battle story, the battlefield picture that took place in the story of Deborah and Barak. The booklet tells you about a few other biblical references that we'll be doing to Tabor. Again, this is a picture from the top of Tabor looking down into the Jezreel Valley. Over here would be the area of Nazareth. Actually, it's over here in this region, which we're going to end the night at. So that's a lot we're going to cram into really our first day, but we should be able to get most of it in. And then what we're going to do after Tabor is we will take time to head over to Nazareth. Now, to get you a little understanding, we picture Nazareth, this little town. It's not that. If you look here, this is all city, lots and lots and lots of houses on top of each other. So that's where we're going to basically stay the night at a place here close to this Church of the Annunciation, which we'll talk about tomorrow. So that's where we will be at and stay for Nazareth the night. So just a few things just to give you an idea of what we're going to be doing. We're going to be taking an opportunity that night to stop at a shopping center, and it looks much like our shopping centers today. This is a big grocery store called the King Grocery Store, and lots of things. That's where we'll buy our breakfast and lunch for the next day. We're going to take opportunity to eat. If you haven't had shawarma, it's delicious. You have opportunity to have lamb or sometimes beef. Sometimes they have chicken. They put it on these spigots and they shave it off and give you the meat and add some seasonings. Kind of like a Subway. You get to choose your vegetables. And so we'll probably have our first shawarma that night. And we'll get a few times shawarma. It's a really unique thing there. Normally on pita you get. And so that's what will happen. And we stay the night at a nice guest house in that region in Nazareth. And so that's what we will be doing for our first day. So that's the adventure for the first day. And I'll end for now. And if you have any questions, make sure you shoot those to me. And I'd be glad to answer anything that I can answer for that.